The bottom of the hour. So we're moving right into this live stream. Ethan's getting us started with recording. Thank you, Ethan, for all the support and help you do. We're going to give it just a few minutes before we get started on the topic, Dallas, because people kind of get that reminder hidden right now. So it seems to be the first minute or two we get the majority of people. But good to see you. Thank you for joining me this morning or this afternoon, whatever it is.
Thanks for asking all those years ago for this moment to arrive on May 1st. Yeah, I've been looking forward to it for months and months and months and prepping for
That's
so
right.
long.
You know, May Day, my mom used to remind me that May Day was like a holiday they did as a kid, and there was May baskets. Have you ever heard this tradition?
I have never heard of this.
Yeah, it was almost like a Valentine's Day, and there would be May baskets, and you walk around and drop notes to your friends in the neighborhood or whatever.
We need
So,
more holidays with baskets.
right. I think this is also the day, you know, that pole where they had the ribbons and they go up and down and they kind of
Oh yeah,
the ribbon,
that thing.
the maypole. Yeah, that's maple.
Okay.
So I think this is that day.
And then we all got computers and video games and stayed inside, and then all the fun stuff from outside just went away.
No more maypoles, no more May Day. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, before we get started too far, I wanted to share something. I thought this was very funny that Justin Barnes and the guys at Versus did. Just a post that they put out there. I just think it's so funny and very clever. It's the Corona Cure game, and some of the details that are in this board game are just hilarious. My favorite being the "Open Me Back Up" sign. I think that's the sign I'm carrying most. But Ethan will post a link for it, and you guys should all kind of give Justin a thumbs up and a repost for this thing. It's just very clever and really great. He has it going out there.
That is great.
You know, this is what happens when we were bored and you can't remember what day it is. We just start thinking of many fun things to do and creative ways to keep our juices.
Well, this is also something that I argue all the time, or not argue, but talk to people about, is like making stuff for the world, like, and not for like, oh, like that's clearly not something that they're like, oh God, I hope our clients like send us a piece of work based off this creative thing we did. It's like, no, it's like they're over there and you're just speaking something in a commentary to the world, which we as creators have all these amazing tools at our disposal that we can just speak into existence. And it's amazing.
Yeah, there's almost I remember reading some of the like best of kind of practices, and I think it was 3M that they only allow their employees to have 90% utilization because they wanted that 10% where they can invent things. And it's like, and that's where they come up with like masking tape and post-it notes or whatever. And that other, I can't remember what percentage is, but they basically build in a percentage for innovation and time. And you would think in a lot of creative firms we would allow for that same thing of 100%, 110% is a disaster. Don't ever do it. 100% is really dangerous. 90% should be status quo, and we're aiming for 80% utilization. So people have the time and capacity to do some of that creative.
I think Google does that too. I think some of like the biggest Google things have come out of like a percentage of time similarly with their employees. Because I've even heard that like some of the like add-ons and stuff in Gmail came from like Google during their like 20% time or whatever they call it. But that's a good way. I never thought about that specifically, but it is something that I feel like we kind of already inherently implement. But maybe that is something worth thinking about at every place. And 10%, 15%, doing your own thing.
Well, we have a tool called the day rate calculator where I just take people's salaries and I kind of do things because of the way the factors method works. We want to have actual rates programmed into our production actuals as we do it. And it's always an interesting conversation when we talk about utilization. There's this weird part of business owners that feel like if someone's low utilized, they're being stolen from in a way. Like they should be able to get more from that person. And if they're over 100%, they feel like a badge of honor. And you think like the opposite. Like if we're in a value-based world, and not perfect, I would never say, you know, low utilization is great. There's a lot of format to it. But that initial reaction is something that's built into us. I don't know if it's American pride or business ownership, or I don't know what that score means to us, but it's obviously a first reaction that we have to analytically think through before we kind of get to the side, because as a creative field and in creative customs, we want to allow for something, don't we?
One of my business mentors at one point had talked about not getting overly nitpicky or too granular on like a specific job or something. Like say that there's a specific job, and in our case, like maybe somebody only has a small line item for sound, but then they have these giant line items over here and all this stuff, and to not get like, and I think about this with my team and the freelancers and stuff, is even if I might be losing money on a certain project that needs it, like like zooming out to a thing. And I'm curious because you've analyzed this stuff. Um, I've noticed that like kind of shortchanging someone because of something that's kind of out of their control, when I know that that thing, and there's all these other things that can help pay for it. It's kind of like looking at your business and going, today I made nothing, so we're on a fast track to failure, versus zooming out to like a quarter and then zooming out to a year and realizing that there's like ups and downs and ebbs and flows and all this stuff. And kind of the worst of it is just getting too like minute, like, oh, this is something that's not making $1, so therefore it's not worthwhile. But I'm curious what you think about something like that.
Well, yeah. So there's I almost like get into the creative brain a lot because I'm always, because there's the people I support and there's a thought there. And one thing I realize is like the voice inside our head is sometimes the most dangerous voice we have. It's the one that leaves us desperate. It's the one that makes us scared. It's the one that's convincing us that we're always failures. It's a very critical voice in our head. But in the creative world, it's also the one that gives us the eureka moment. Like it's the one that gives us the aha. Like it's when I hear that voice, it's the one I like, oh, that's a great idea. And we go write it down. So you have to be very smart with what's going on in that. And some of that, what you're talking about is, having a balance of what is, am I lying to myself that this is a good idea and it's actually not a good idea, not a good business proposition to just spend a whole bunch of money making a short film that no one will see, right? So that's one kind of scary proposition.
Yeah.
But the other one is to like get a sense of when you're right. Like when I look at that Corona cure thing that Justin did, like it's brilliant. It's just simply,
it took a lot of time,
yeah,
but it's worth
but
it.
it's the, it when you have it. I don't know how to say it. So there is a part of
I
that.
feel like as I get older, that's actually something that becomes more and more part of my mind, is the idea of being skeptical of my own thoughts, and analyzing it and trying to like separate myself from the feeling of whether something's right or wrong in the like pragmatic side, and start questioning, and that like uh inner monologue of like, okay, well, this is the way I feel. That's that inner voice. That inner voice is telling me that I'm failing, or like the whole business is going to collapse because 2 days we had not very much work or something, versus zooming out and going, oh, well, last week we had this giant job, like that's going to help.
Yeah.
um
Yeah,
yeah.
like you're not a disaster. Hey, so it's as we get into this thing, Ethan kind of set it up to us, a great reminder that this is an open forum day. Please send us the questions you have. We would love to kind of address what's on your mind. I put out there a subject of how do I get everything done? Because I keep hearing business owners that are now working 15-hour days. And I remember being that first time, 10 years ago, it was 12 years ago, working at home, and that desk always sitting there, I think is kind of dragging a lot of us back to the office per se, even though it's really on Zoom. And I think also the unfortunate nature that everyone's doing it also means the day doesn't end because everyone is still sitting at their desk at 11 hours, 12 hours into the day too. So how are you feeling, Dallas? How is this kind of working out for you? Do you feel like you're burning the midnight oil as part of this process too?
Yeah. I think I feel like, so I have a 7-month-old daughter, and then I also have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they have like regulated my life, because there is a point where it's just like I have to leave. I have to get out at 5 or 6 and spend time with them, because that's what their needs are. And then my newborn, like, or my 7-month-old, like needs to be on a schedule. Like she goes down at 7 and she gets up at 7. So that kind of not only regulates my life, but my wife's life, my kid's life, and we are on this cycle. But and that is like when you go to a place, it's easy to kind of set up this big barrier and this brick wall between like work and home.
Yeah.
It's much harder to do that when you're just in this perpetual state of being nearby or sitting in an office or something like that. But for me, I'm sure that if I didn't have kids, it would be much harder, because I like what I do and I like working and I enjoy it. But then before I know it, like I can burn myself out pretty badly. But a mentor also had said at one point, long time ago, like right when I started the industry, like, I mean, these guys were like in their 60s, and they were saying like, even as like a 22-year-old, you need to like be on burnout prevention. You need to know it's coming because it happens with everyone. So you need to prepare for it and understand that rest and relaxation and things is okay without this immense guilt on your shoulders, because it's part of the process.
It's so weird, and I'd be curious if other people are having this similar experience. But I swear, in the last 10 years, but definitely more concentrated in the last 5 years, there seems to be like either an addiction to or a sense of pride of using the word busy. Like I've heard the word, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so as if that's the badge, the busy badge. And I feel like we overutilize it
all the time.
Oh yeah, it's almost like how are you? Oh, I'm fine. We now say, how are you? I'm so busy. And we don't even really mean it. We don't even know what it means anymore. But it's like this, I think it's a word of the last decade at least. But I think in reality, like that, we have to have a mindset beyond the words we're using and not kind of be sucked into wanting to be the busy guy. I almost want to look like I'm the not busy guy. Of course, when you're dealing with clients, you want to make sure that they know that you're busy working on the stuff that they're doing or whatever. Yeah. But there is something that's happening around culture that makes it either we actually really are busy because when we're not busy, we're doing our Instagram posts and whatever to keep up with what's happening. But
it reminds me of there's this great podcast out there called Terrible, Thanks for Asking. Some really tragic things happened to the host, and she and the whole podcast is called Terrible, Thanks for Asking. So I think about that a lot when I'm trying to be honest in those cases. But yes, it has been like, how are you doing has turned in from, oh, I'm doing really well to, oh, I'm really busy.
Yeah, totally that way.
Yeah.
Hey, George Berlin kind of just said he was at a webinar. George, if you want to join us, I'd love to hear one or two takeaways from the webinar that you just went to, and give us some pointers of how to get out of it. One, I have learned in life to be very careful with language. Like, for example, I pick up this word that we're overusing, busy, and then my brain kind of analyzes it. And then I become almost on a path myself to not be that person, just to stand away. And, you feel like the third person sometimes where everyone else has this special language and you're the one on the outside of it. But some of those words are good to be on the outside of. So.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm reading.
Obama feels like he's largely alone.
I mean, he hasn't been working in almost 4 years. I understand.
Hey, George, thanks for joining us. You said you just went to a webinar about this. What did they talk about? And give us a couple takeaways from what you discussed.
Yeah, I was actually one of the speakers on the webinar, so it was interesting. It was actually about like wellness and supporting yourself in this kind of environment. And we talked a lot about, several of us had, we worked so hard that, things happen, like, parts of your body stop working. I worked so hard the first few weeks that I had my, I had a complete seizure in my shoulder that it just wouldn't work anymore.
Oh my gosh.
We want to push ourselves because we're worrying so much about where things are coming from, and we don't know anything else to do but just keep jamming on trying to get work together. And it gets kind of like into a crazy circle of
I'll be honest, there's sometimes I keep thinking I think this is doing more damage than helping.
Have you noticed before, and this happens with me all the time, it'll be in the shower or when I'm driving, some of my best ideas come in these very tiny moments where I'm forced away from my computer, away from my phone. And I'm in this, but something about the minutia of always being in front of this technology, it feels like there's actually a brick wall in my brain. So if I'm out on a walk or on a run or whatever, those are times where it's something releases in my brain and I actually have some better ideas, better focus, and better understanding. So it's almost like I feel like I do more damage constantly working.
Yeah, one of the if you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, sorry, not one. Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill.
Yeah,
he studied some of the industrial engineer, or the fathers of the Industrial Revolution, and basically took some of their habits. And one of the habits that was repeated was the time alone. And one person even would dedicate time in a room with only a piece of paper and a pen to get his thoughts out of his mind. And I love that idea of this. It's really truly like thinking. You have to, in order to do something else in this world, you have to begin with a thought, and you have to find that thought, and to realize success requires that, opposed to success is busy. That busy curse is really bad. George, did they have any? Did anybody have a one good takeaway of that you would recommend to the listeners here?
You know, one of the one of the speakers was, excuse me, was like a mindfulness specialist, and he talked a lot about working working on a program with yourself to be aware of how you're feeling, because I don't think we think about that as much when we're working. You know, we just want to say I have a thing to get done, and you know we're used to like you were saying, working all the time, whether your family's there or not, and sort of stuffing how we feel about things. And I feel like this is a time a lot of people discussed in that webinar, like we need to be aware of how our work is and everything else is making us feel right now to be able to know when we need to back away from things.
Yeah, that's great. There is we don't know who this person is, so we're just going to say Michelle Obama is listening to us today. And Obama said, being largely alone, I firmly believe in having strong and solid personal projects. Could be models, gardening, painting, things that draw you away from the constant draw of work. Such a great idea. I have a 68 Ford in my garage that I feel like I just want to go grab a hammer sometimes or a wrench and tear apart the next piece. I'm just tearing it apart. Someday I put it back together. And it really, that draw to want to get over there is that like Zen space I can get into.
This is my Ford, my Half-Life Alex right now.
Yeah.
VR. That's what I want to get back to.
George, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you. I can hear. Colin said that he's been working way less and loving it. And Roberto kind of agrees that there's an opportunity to work less and really draw focus to the things that matter most. So, I think our Christmas, go ahead.
Colin's social media has been like so happy. I've followed, and I feel like once this thing happened, it's just like kids and flowers and time and all this stuff. Like before it was like film sets and all this stuff. And then now I'm just like, oh God, it seems so pleasant over there. Yeah.
The Slack channels, they get kind of busier in the weekend. I think we're kind of just reading up with each other and sharing and community. But there's moments where, all you guys chatting makes me want to draw in. And I think I need to there's a snooze on that, and you can turn the snooze on it and be careful. I think it's a Friday. I was kind of thinking this topic is great because I just want to remind people that it is Friday and tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. And I started the day off with a gentleman in Spain. And at the very beginning, he said, well, usually this is a holiday, but since I'm just at home anyways, we might as well just work. And I thought, wow, in a functioning world, he would have taken the day off. Why is he on the phone with me? We could have waited till Monday or whatever. Let's go. There's another topic I wanted to hit on, Dallas, and I think you read it in the Slack group, in the sales group today. I got just a mail from Pipedrive this morning, and it addressed one of the questions we had earlier in the week about subject lines for cold call emails. And I want to pat ourselves on the back because Joel and I's recommendations of adding something personal and using a recommendation are 1 and 2 of why someone opens up a cold email. I'll have Ethan kind of post a whole article in here, but you said you've been kind of processing and thinking about some of that cold outreach and kind of discussing about that a little bit yourself.
So I have two big mailing lists. There's about 1,000 very personal connections on the De Facto Sound side, just people that I've worked with and stuff. And then like 6,000 or something on the podcast. But the one theme that I noticed from that article is just really putting yourself in the position that they're in. So for example, like the last mass email I sent, I remember on the De Facto Sound side, didn't have like, hey, you got to check out this cool thing that we did because you need to hire us to do the thing. Like I very deadpanned just a silly video we did on YouTube, just of like two like corgis just like fighting at each other, like these two chubby corgis, and we put all this like epic music and sound design and big creature vocals and stuff. So it was just like a dumb video that got like 400,000 views or something on YouTube. But it was just something we did for our enjoyment. And I can't remember what the subject line was, but it was very much in the spirit of like, you've seen a million of these things, like check out the reel, check out this. I love that that you guys were talking about never say check out again.
Never say it.
Check
never.
out. or the other one that I noticed that so many people say, so I apologize if you said this. The other one is, the people at so and so called us up and said blah 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 blah. Like the people at Discovery called us up and said that they want to do da 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 da, and it's like, that's the other trope that I'm like, oh god, write it better.
Yeah.
So some of my like mass email and stuff, I'm trying to do things that I would want to receive. And like if I get something surprising or totally not that, or even just like a funny video or personal or something short, because I don't really want to spend that much time, usually I'll engage a little bit more. And there's a handful of people that I'll see their mass email and I'll go, oh, this is more engaging and there's something going to be interesting behind this, rather than check out, the latest project from so and so.
Yeah. And I love Joel's little recommendation of including their name in the subject body. So it's been a long time since I talked to you, Dallas. And part of your subject is it makes you think that person is talking to you.
Just make sure that there's not a lot of people in your mass email that does mass email, because I always, when I see those, I go, oh, okay. Hey, it's been a while, comma, in brackets, first name, period. So I see that, like I see it and I'm like, oh, you did the thing.
Yeah. Unsubscribe.
It's just being thoughtful, spending a lot of time.
We're kind of dealing with the subscriber issue at RevThink, because we really just had one email list, and when we started doing daily briefings, we were telling people what the subjects were, and we were losing people every day because they didn't want to get the latest topic of daily briefing, which I totally don't blame people. But when we didn't send it out, people weren't showing up. So we had this like, wait a second, what is our responsibility and how do we use this wisely? And we updated our subscription page to say, almost like, hey, we don't want to spam you. We just want you to know like which of these services that we can do through email do you want to be part of? And
Joel does the most perfectly crafted clickbaity stuff for me. Like I almost always click on it because it's always some lead in thing that it's just like, you should be doing this thing. And I'm like, you're right. I haven't thought about that in a while. And I have to click on it. So I think that I'm sure I open about 9 out of every 10. No, probably 10 out of every 10. But there's a point behind this. Is really just like serving other people. We're all in a service industry. And I think that's where we get a little confused as creatives, is like, our vision or my vision. And, I didn't get into this to do client work. I have all of my own visions and stuff. And the client work is a means to that. Like, we are creative, janitors sometimes for big organizations, and sometimes we're creative leads in some regards. But, I think most of us, at least in my situation, it's, 9 times out of 10, it's just like we need to do our special thing to the best of our ability, and those 9 things lead to that one big project where we get to really put in all of our effort. But even with mass email, it's just like, it's a service thing. Like, give a value, give someone, like, everyone's time is really valuable, so like give something that's actually gonna, I don't know, make them laugh or give them information that they need.
Yeah, I think the reason why the insights email works for most people is the voice that he uses is the walking in your shoes voice. Like what we do at RevThink is we have this saying, we come alongside, but Joel specifically has been in your shoes. So he kind of knows the real feeling, and he's expressing that in true, genuine form. And we have like this curious place, because we tell people how to talk to their clients, and then the people we're talking to forget that they are our clients. So they'll say like, oh, I love this insights email, whatever. And then we're like, well, we have this way of walking in someone's shoes. And then we say, separate conversation, you should try walking your client's shoes. Oh, that will never work.
And you're literally doing that.
But you open up those. Yeah. So it's
you're providing value. And when you provide real value, I think the whole lines of wanting something kind of evaporate completely. When you're give. I can't, that's another thing too, is giving. You're giving a lot, and and I see these emails and they're really well thought out, and it's not, and I can tell that these are not things. It's just like, I gotta send an email today, so what am I going to talk about? Okay, I guess I'll do this thing. It's like, it's very strategic and very targeted. If I have to just pull up an idea off the top of my head immediately and do like value add stuff, like it's crafted. It takes time. It takes,
the tool we use, by the way, is a tool called Drip. I think Drip has been really great. You can build campaigns. It helps you manage your list. It actually kind of gives you some really good insight on who's interacting or not.
Oh, is that like a MailChimp alternative?
It's a MailChimp alternative. It's
Okay.
It's really big. It helps you build the conversation in a lot of great ways. The landing page we have for subscriptions is managed by Drip, so it's adds some connectivity to it. I would highly recommend it for people. It's a pretty robust tool. A lot of when we do our Jumpstart program and our outreach programs, that kind of stuff, we can actually maintain those smaller groups and make sure that smaller group is on board. So we totally love it. If those are interested, Obama told us he submitted his email under his normal name and he's never received an email from us. It's check your spam folder, I guess. I don't know, but it really is something. Or Obama, you can give it to Ethan right now, and we'll make sure that we get you on our mailing list. But we actually can read and see and develop, and I think that connectivity, we spend a lot of time just caring for and crafting that. We only have a few minutes left, and I can see that there was a couple, or at least one PPP question here, and I have a couple updates about PPP. Did you get your money yet? What's your
morning
status?
or last night, like at 10:30, I got the email.
And that was Chase, right?
Chase of all places, and I think it took me.
No, I don't know what happened. I swear in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, Chase has basically started funding people. My Zipline company, we got through Chase. My clients that were on Chase got theirs. So.
Well, I'll tell you this. So Greg Beauchamp, I don't think he's in here, but he's part of this. He hit me up at it and said that he got a loan number within an hour from Capital Bank in DC. And that's the consistency is what I'm hearing. People's United Bank. My friend David went through a local Pennsylvania bank, got it very quickly. It really is, I think, the small banks.
It's insane. Yesterday, there was a local bank here. It's a local bank where you call them and they go, "Hi, it's Debbie." Like it was no thing. I said, "Hey, Debbie, RevThink, this is what I got going on." She goes, "Oh, I can help you with that." I literally sent her the documents I submitted to American Express. I sent it to her. She called me back within 30 minutes, said, "Hey, your social security number is truncated. Can you just read that off to me?" And then 10 minutes later, she called me back and she said, "Just so you know, I submitted it. I got feedback from the SBA. You've already been approved by someone else." But you realize you just need a terminal, a person and a terminal, and that thing is submitted. It's the big banks that collected all of it that caused the harm. So Lou actually asked, was there a bank that we'd recommend? Lou, I know you're in Los Angeles, and I know City National Bank did similar things to what I talked about yesterday with a few of Jason Fletcher's clients. So reach out to them. They're in Los Angeles. You probably get a hold of someone specific.
I also literally just went to Google Maps, put in bank, and looked at and sorted it by highest rated. And I saw one that was like 5 stars. I looked at it, I was like, I've never recognized that bank before. 5-star bank with 40 reviews or something. I called them up, but I was like, business banker. And they're like, sure, no problem. Hey, yeah, what's up? Oh yeah, I can get that for you. Just send over the stuff. And so it's just like, I think that I have a spirit, I guess here that the spirit of some of this stuff, and I remember this being a big deal at the beginning, was really not trying to share that wealth down with these smaller banks and get inherently these banks will get more clients, and we have a lopsided banking system, I guess. But it was Chase that ended up doing this. But one very important thing that I think everyone needs to know that I didn't even realize until I got an approval, because I wasn't worried about the other two. I've applied 3 times, and I did read confirmation that the SBA, you can apply multiple times, and the SBA will reject every subsequent one. Yeah. That's something I didn't even know until last night. And so it is okay to do that. And the SBA will just go, oh, they already got this from this other place, so do it.
That's exactly what happened to me when I submitted it. She said, "Oh, we got rejected because you already confirmed." So the SBA is taking care of that redundancy. Yeah. Colin actually asked a question, a specific one. They got it right before their April payroll. Can they use it for April, May, and June payroll? The way that the program seems to work is you have an 8-week period to spend it on payroll. Traditionally, if you're doing payroll every other week, that would cover 4 payroll periods. One of the questions we asked Louis on Tuesday was, is this an accrual or cash? Like, is it when the money leaves your account? So I could run 4 payrolls if I wanted to, or 6 payrolls if I wanted to, because I spent the money, or do I have to accrue the cost of it during that time? What Louis said, very good CPA question is, it depends. And he also said, it's not clear. So there are some mechanisms in this that aren't very clear. What you do want to do is use the payroll portion of it. So 75% of the money you receive, you want to use on payroll. I would say that if April, May, and June payrolls equal 75% and you use it on that, I think that's going to be okay. They just want you to make sure it's going towards those items. If you ask me, the reason specifically is they want to get the tax dollars back, which also reminds me of another thing I heard this morning from Louis, which is the money you spend with PPP funds that are forgiven, those dollars are not deductible for taxes, because basically it's free money given to you. So you can't write it off as an expense also come April, which is just fine because it wasn't revenue you received anyways, it's a grant. But keep that in mind, those payrolls that you're putting into and rents that you're putting into using the PPP loan, you're gonna have to remove those from your expenses in April and not write those off on your tax form. It makes total sense when you think about it, but that's just keep that in mind as a kind of a secondary part. And as Louis said, of course, they can change their mind and do something else in the future. But as we're doing this and living it out together, we're going to kind of keep people posted. We're using the Slack channel to do that. And I have received a document to help work out the loans. I've tried to use it a couple times. It was written by a CPA firm and it's not very intuitive. So I've been too busy, but I'm going to try to rework this document to give us some pointers too, because I know that's been a stress. Yeah, it seems like there has been a lot of people in our finance class or revenue class that are finally kind of getting the PPP. So I'm glad it kind of it got some traction the second time around.
I'm concerned about, obviously I'm trying to run the business regardless, and I'm concerned about anything later coming, because I'm trying to make sure that regardless of the PPP, that we make it through it. And that's just kind of something that helps in case we have a downturn, maybe in 2 or 3 months as production post catches up with production, all this stuff. I'm just concerned about if I took that money and put it in a savings account and just left it there, and then the government later is we have to see a decline in revenue specifically during this period for this to happen. So I'm very paranoid about moving targets later. But then again, I also don't want to spread misinformation. So I have no data on whether or not what I'm saying should even be a concern.
Again, that's something that's very clear. We know you have to show impact or you have to declare impact. We're not even sure if you have to show it. From what I've heard lately, the bank's going to qualify this. So not the IRS or the SBA, but the bank's going to qualify the impact. Our understanding so far, the questions we've asked others is if you've lost projects, if projects have been cut down, if projects have been cut in half, that's obvious impact. So that's what you would verify with emails or whatever, that you lost projects or project cuts or whatever.
Most certainly.
It doesn't have to say revenue drop, so you don't have to show it only for revenue. But you're exactly right. If revenue hasn't dropped and you have it in a savings account, or you have a portion of it, you can always pay back the loan within 6 months with no interest. Yeah. So there's no prepayment penalties or anything like that. So when you right size the loan and you use it for what it's worth, if there's money left over, you can always give it back to them, and then just take the forgivable part of it. All that seems to be a really good mechanism to kind of keep things going. I'm curious if the money's returned in a few months, if there'll still be future funds available for those who missed these 2 rounds also. We haven't heard from that, but you would think theoretically it makes sense. If they have money available, it's supposed to be given back out. So it could be a long tail distribution as this stuff plays out over the next 8 or 10, 12 weeks.
I mean, I'll most certainly be using that chunk of money. I'll be spending that much money on payroll regardless, because I haven't changed any of my staffing. So that will happen. It's just a matter of we're also going through a phase where luckily projects are we've lost some, but we're still keeping a relatively consistent revenue, at least for now. And I'm worried that is that going to come back to haunt us if we're keeping consistent? Is that something where I just need to not touch that money, or do I spend that money? I don't know. I feel very.
No, I would definitely say it's there for stimulus. So do the best you can and follow in the guidelines. Use it for what it's worth.
So I can stimulate that money very much. If I knew without a shadow of a doubt that with our income coming and all that stuff, I want to spend it on all these business things, or this if it turns out to be extra. But just very nervous about it. So I'm sure that I'm not the only one.
Again, someone asked me this morning, and I'd reset it like this: the worst case scenario is you have a 1% loan that's paid back over time. That's a very low interest rate, even to swap that out. But most likely that the work that you're doing, the payroll you have, that stuff will be forgiven as long as it's within terms. So a majority of it will be forgiven anyway.
That's how I understand it.
And follow through. I haven't found anything that contradicts that. Well, it is 5 minutes after the hour, so we're a little bit over, but I always appreciate you kind of working with us. Joel took our advice and took the day off a little bit, and he's out in the office doing things he needs to do. So I appreciate you being my co-chair this afternoon, Dallas.
Thank you.
It is Friday afternoon. Please enjoy. We are going to be back next week. Just as a heads up, Joel and I are trying to figure out when we stop doing this daily. I'd love to get some feedback if you still think this is helpful. Questions you might have, we're here to serve you. Happy to keep on doing it, but also recognize that maybe we're not going to do this in perpetuity. Maybe turn this into some other format. So we'd love to get your feedback on that. We are here because we want you to thrive in business, life, and career. So we thank you for being available this afternoon and doing what we're doing. Please enjoy your weekend. If it's sunny outside, go get some. I know what I'm going to do. I'm in Colorado. I'm going to go hiking. So I'm out living life as I need to, being my social distance. Blessings to you, Dallas. Stay safe and healthy. Enjoy the weekend and the bone run.
All right. See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.